Hello, EDCI candidates, 706 candidates. Dr. Palermo with your week 2 instructional video. Some ramblings about assignments and thoughts for week 2 of your 15-week fall semester. Big rocks. You are to read chapter 2 in Hall and Horde this week. Interventions. This notion that it takes something to help make the implementation of an intervention of a change effort succeed. And part 1 in Graham and Ferret, or PLCs. I'll come back to say something about that in just a minute. Let me start by saying that you need to get started on your some of your projects, the FCEPA and PLCPA, and these 2 dialogue posts are really scavenger hunts, forcing you to go and do some research there. But I think with a purpose, because if you do some research there and start to read about research-based strategies for family and community involvement, or PLC best practices, if you start to look at the assessment tools, then when it comes to doing a needs assessment for your FCEPA, which you do, and your PLCPA, which you do, you'll have resources at your fingertips to do those needs assessments and research-based strategies to then implement change efforts. So let me illustrate that just a little bit. So week 2 said FCEP resource use. Over here in the resources for course content file under FCEPA, or a bunch of other files, and there's some great stuff here, including a very detailed CETL research synthesis on family and community engagement. I have said, I think that you probably believe that it takes a village to help raise a child, and to help schools and communities work together. Anyway, kids are most successful when schools and communities are working together. Standards for school, family and school partnerships are here. Research about best practices for engaging families and communities. This stuff needs to show up in your FCEPA. There is a section for a needs assessment. There is a section for research-based strategies. Here's where you're going to pull some of this stuff. And I would like you to look at the standards. This means opening another window, and let's see if I can do that. My goodness. Okay. School and Family Partnerships Assessment Guide. I hope that you can see that. If not, come back and access it. It has the standards. There are 8 standards, I think, for successful family and school partnerships. And here's a needs assessment, folks. So there's a tool for assessing the level of family and community engagement and involvement at your school. So share screen back to here. Let's see just how adept Dr. Palermo is at this stuff. So this is all in the resources for each of these projects. It's over here, resources for course content. Okay, go here, please. Do a little bit of a scavenger hunt to get started on the FCEPA, and then also on PLCPA. You should also know that in the PLCP, in the Professional Learning Community book, the Ferreter and Graham book, part 1 is all about building the teams, and it has a variety of different assessments. So maybe you have PLCs in your building, maybe you're going to want to tune them up. Here are some tools again that you could use to say, these are the principles, here are the research-based strategies for interconnected factors that guide a successful PLC. Do we have those at our place? There's a planning checklist on page 18 and 19, 20. There's a conversation tracking sheet, turning principles into stories. Over on page 24, PLC initial action survey. So again, needs assessments, tools here and also in the resources for course content section in your Blackboard page. Respond back to the dialogue post, please. You don't have to talk to one another about these things, but if I were going to be writing an FCEP this semester, I would do some research here. I would conduct a needs assessment. I would use the needs assessment to identify some strategies. If I know that there's a defunct PTA at my school and we want to try to reestablish the PTA, that's part of the goals and strategies of the school. And hey, that's my need, but document that need with your needs assessment. And then having a PTA is a best practice, but cite the research, cite the best practices, and then write that right into your FCEPA. So if I were writing a dialogue post about this topic this week, I'd go a little bit overboard and already have several pages of my FCEP written. Wink, wink. Work harder, work smarter, not harder. PLCPA, initial thoughts. Again, take a look at the tools, take a look at the book to see what surveys or tools might work there. Look at that PLC assessment tool that I showed you in our first weekend together. Think about, consider using that perhaps. But again, if you can do some writing here, that will double dip in writing your FCEPA and PLCPA later, all the better. Now, Hall and Hoard, what about Chapter 2? Well, there's a very specific connection there between Chapter 2 and external communication and what you need to do for your PEC. But here's one of the big ideas that I love from page 26 of my Hall and Hoard. All too often, public education professionals and policymakers assume that change just happens. Nah. The rational empirical approach to change postulated that a good program or process provided to good people would find its way into their practice. Good people doing good work, right? And a coercive approach says, if I hammer and push and coerce people, then change will happen. Not so much. So in Chapter 2, Hall and Hoard introduced the concept and term intervention, that some intervention, an action or event has to happen if you're going to have successful change. And these events and interventions, again, can be positive or negative. There are 6 major functions of these interventions. There are other types of interventions. Again, communicating externally on page 36 is the intervention that you're asked to respond to and talk about for your PEC. To whom are you going to communicate this change effort? If the PE is about changing some program, something about a program, who are you reporting to about that? Who is your external communication? And you know that's, again, part of your PEC. To whom are you reporting? The Eastlake School District story is continued in Chapter 2. And if you're having trouble understanding any of the interventions or ideas around interventions in Chapter 2, read through the Eastlake story carefully. And I think that illustrates how interventions help jump the implementation bridge. And I won't say more about that except to say, again, change doesn't just happen. Interventions can help it be successful. So, reading and doing and writing this week. Get started on your FCEPA, PLCPA by doing some research and writing, please. Respond as you did this past week in your dialogue posts to show me, to demonstrate to me that you've mastered the content in those text readings. All righty, Rooney. we're soon going to be talking to Bill Farrader. Um, how are PLCs going at your school? What would you want to ask Bill when we have the opportunity to speak with him? I hope that you'll see through that that this is real stuff and that PLCs can work in schools. So this is this is a change, working more collaboratively, that can work with interventions. It can be successful with interventions. So keep that positive spirit about PLCs, please. Have a great week. There's my ramblings for week 2. Write to me if you have any questions. Enjoyed reading your dialogue post last week. I look forward to seeing what you have to say this week. Thanks.